What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video here. So if you had watched the last episode, we got the GSR engine here out of this really nice shell. And the next step basically is to tear this thing down. We're going to pull the head off of it, see if we can see what's going on. It had pretty low compression on 2 cylinders on 3 and 4. It had like 85 or 90, and the other 2 cylinders had like 140, so pretty big difference there. Hoping it's just the head gasket. Worst case scenario, might have to throw some pistons or some rings in it, but not too worried about that. But we'll get right into it, guys. We were able to tell that I had ran that. So I'm going to kind of show you guys. Alright, so as you can see here, I did start pulling some of the stuff off. I got the intake manifold off. I took the AC compressor off. We're not going to be using that. Got the transmission, the clutch, that sort of thing. I was actually surprised. The clutch is not in that bad of shape. Somebody must have replaced this at one point. It does have a lightweight flywheel on it as well. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get the valve cover off of here and start from there. Beautiful. Look at all that nice RTV all over everything. Ridiculous. Got the valve cover off here. Yeah, just basically now what I'm gonna do is take the these 2 girdles off here, off the camshafts, and then inspect the cams, make sure the lobes are okay. I'm just, hoping, fingers crossed, that everything looks good up on top here. It should be okay. I mean, there wasn't any valve train noise that I could hear, anything like that. And VTEC was working as well. So we'll get these cam girdles off here, and we'll keep going. Okay, so got those off. Just taking a look here. I mean, everything looks, I don't see any, grooves or anything on the on any of the lobes. I mean, everything looks pretty good there. So I think we're okay yet. So what I'm doing now here is I'm just slowly working the belt off. And then once you get the belt off there, I mean, we're not reusing this, so I really don't care. And if you are, sending the head out, you're putting your timing belt on, you don't have to mark anything. So don't worry about putting it in top dead center right now. Some people say, oh, you got to put it in TDC before you take it apart. You don't have to. Don't worry about that. So now that I got the belt off, I should be able to get the rest of these caps off here. The ones on the ends here, and then the one on this end as well. So we'll get those popped off. And make sure these go back in the exact same position that they were in when you took them off. They wear to the cam, so they have to go back in the exact same spot. So make sure you do that. Don't mix them up. So it looks like the next step to be able to get the head off after we loosen up the head bolts is we actually have to take this cover off of here, because there's no way that we're going to be able to get the head off of there with this cover on there. So we'll get the cover off, which may possibly be involving taking the crank pulley off. If so, you're definitely going to need an impact for that. Hopefully we don't struggle with that at all. So we'll get that cover off next. Hopefully this doesn't take too many ugga-duggas. Oh, not bad at all. I was actually able to finagle the crank pulley off easily without even having to touch the alternator. I could just wobble it kind of back and forth, and I pulled it off. Just make sure you don't lose the keyway. It stayed in the crank pulley, but yeah, sometimes they get stuck in here and you don't want to lose that, lose that. So basically just got to get this one bolt out of here, and then I should be able to pull the cover off. Okay, so the next step here is going to be removing the head bolts. So we'll get going on that and try to alternate, crisscross, that sort of thing when you're doing this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm gonna rotate the engine over and just try and visually inspect to see if I see any, you know, scoring, anything like that on any of the cylinders, which I don't. It looks like there's a little bit of cylinder wash in that one, but not bad. Everything looks okay there. So I inspected the head gasket, and honestly I didn't see anything anywhere that was like really stood out. So I don't know. We're just gonna get everything cleaned up, and once the parts all get here, we'll probably put it back together. Alrighty, y'all. So it's been about a week now. Got a ton of parts in the meantime. I have been doing actually a lot of work on the engine itself. Well, I should say that I've been doing a lot of cleaning. Yeah, this block was horrible. So I've been cleaning that. The head currently is out to the machine shop. Donnie just dropped that off to him today. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, maybe we can have it by the weekend, possibly. He's gonna hot tank the head, deck it, check the valves, and then put the Super Tech valve stem seals in as well for us. So kind of show you some of the stuff we got here, some of the parts that came, and yeah, I'll show you guys that. So we got a lot of Honda accessories and stuff like that. Lots of OEM gaskets, thermostat. I got some jumper harness wires here because we're gonna have to be converting some stuff. Just lots of OEM Honda seals. Got some spark plugs. I got some tools in here. Got some Honda Bond. Head studs here. These are the eBay branded, or I should say DNA branded head studs. They're copycats to the ARP. So we're going to give these a shot. No instructions, nothing like that. There's literally no videos even online of people using these. So I might be the first to try them out. So if you guys are curious, yeah, we should know here shortly. Got a Gates timing kit. Came with a timing belt, water pump, tensioner, that sort of thing. That's the part number if you have a GSR. That's the one you'll need. And we got ourselves a Cometic head gasket as well. So as far as the block goes, I don't know if you guys remember what it looked like before, but it was bad. This is about 5 hours of me cleaning, and it's still not perfect. It's about as good as I'm gonna get it, unless I want to stick another 5 hours into it. I did take a really fine 800 grit emery cloth on here just to smooth this out, because it did have some stuff on here, like I had some, I think looked like RTV, plenty of that on this car. And I'm going to come around here quick and show you the valve cover. The valve cover had a absolutely hideous paint job on it. So I went through, sanded it all down, had a couple hours in that, and then hit it with some wrinkle paint. So you guys can see that turned out, I think it turned out pretty good. It did actually have more of a wrinkle finish to it. And then I decided to do one more coat, and I actually hit it with a heat gun too, or actually a torch, and it kind of went away a little bit. So it does still have that wrinkle finish to it. It's not quite as wrinkly as I would have liked, but wow, it just looks 100 times better than it did. So what I'm actually going to work on now is I'm going to work on pulling the water pump off of the block and work on getting the new Gates water pump on there. So I'm going to work on that, and yeah, if you guys want to catch along or tag along, you can. So we got the pump off here. I'm gonna have to clean up all that silicone. Nothing new there. This is the one that was on there. Managed to get the water pump and the timing belt tensioner swapped out. Got the Gates kit on there, fits great. Had a really nice O-ring as well. And this tensioner spins nice and free. This other one here was, probably can't hear it, but it was pretty noisy. So we're gonna get rid of this junk here. We don't need any of that. Also, a little snippet of information for anyone that wants to do like an LS VTEC swap, and if you wanted to use like a B18c head or a GSR head, that sort of thing. It matters what timing belt and water pump you use also. If you use a GSR water pump, you have to make sure you use the GSR timing belt. It's a difference. The GSR has a 22 tooth water pump, and I believe an LS has a 19. So the LS belt, I believe, is too short. It would be, yeah, too short, I think, if you try to use it with this water pump. Either way, you got to make sure you match up the water pump and timing belt with whatever it is that you're doing. So we're gonna work on putting these knockoff ARP head studs in. What we're gonna do is we're gonna dip them in some oil and then thread them in by hand. Thread this down in by hand, hand tight. Do not rip these in with a ratchet or even an Allen wrench. So I went ahead and got the all the studs on the exhaust side installed. I'm going to go through and do the intake side now. Pretty simple. Ended up getting the thermostat housing off. Got that all cleaned up there. Here's the stock, or I shouldn't say stock, but here's the thermostat that was in it. Gasket is on there as well. This is the part number for the new Gates one. This fits, I think pretty much all the B series are all the same. That's the gasket part number from Gates as well. So the thermostat housing's all bolted on with the new thermostat in there. Looks good. I got the neck here cleaned up with some sandpaper as well. There was a bunch of corrosion and dried coolant, that sort of thing on there. So always make sure you have that all cleaned up, because it is a pretty heavy spot for buildup, that sort of thing. Alright guys, so it's been a couple days. I did actually get a phone call this morning from the machine shop. They said the head is done. So when we get done with work here, we're gonna run over and grab that bad boy and see what we got. Just picked the head up. Came hermetically sealed in a nice bag. Looks beautiful. Can't wait to get it home and tear it out of the bag and see what we got. Man, does this thing look way better. Holy crap. Looks brand new. We're gonna get it off of here and get it set up on the bench. But man, did that turn out good. Wow, looks so good. So depending on your gasket, if it's a OEM style one, it's gonna have all these triple holes everywhere. Pretty much just line up on some of the studs right in the center of that, and pretty much just bolt the pan on. Simple as that. Not much involved with doing oil pan gasket on these. So one thing you want to do before you put the head on, you got to put the dowels in. Dowels go in here and in there on the exhaust side, but you don't want to stick them in the head. You want to stick them in the block. So those go here and here, just like that. That's the dowel positions. And then we're going to put the head gasket on. All right, so there's the head gasket. It is a Cometic. That's the part number. It's an 81 millimeter, 31 thousandths multi-layer steel. That's close to the factory one as you're gonna get. So we'll get that slid on there. I do want to mention there is a word written in this one that says up as well. If I can get it to focus there. You want to make sure that that is facing up. Also, it is possible to have this flipped around on accident, so make sure that you do have the coolant ports and stuff lined up and it's in the correct orientation as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is some people opt to spray copper gasket spray on this. You know, if it wasn't a Cometic, I probably would do that. But this is a pretty thick head gasket. I don't know, I think there's a lot of sealing surface already. I don't feel that you would need to put copper coat on this. If it was an OEM one or a Felpro or something along those lines, then I would probably put copper spray gasket on. Otherwise, the Cometics, the way they are, work just fine. And make sure you get the gasket over the dowels as well. It's a little bit trickier doing this when you're using bolts. When you use the studs, it does make it pretty easy to line everything up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slide the head on. So what we need to do now is get it seated over the dowels. So I'm going to move the camera off to the side here. That way we can get that. Might take me a minute or two. Hopefully it pops on easy. All right, so that really wasn't too bad. Being that the head was, just cleaned, everything went together pretty good. So you can see it's popped down. It all looks pretty good there. You can see the big difference between the head being hot tanked and clean versus the block just using Brake Clean and Purple Power. So big difference there. but it looks pretty good all in all. The other thing I want to tell you guys too is, so there's this little dowel pin here that can pop out. If you take it to the machine shop, make sure that they don't lose that. There's also an O-ring here that's not in there that must have been removed when it was washed. We'll need to get another one of those from Honda. So just refer to your local Honda guide for part number and get that O-ring as well. So just a quick note here, these off-brand ARPs do use a 13 millimeter 12 point. I'm not sure what the ARPs are, but they could possibly be different. So just keep that in mind. 13 millimeter 12 point socket is what you will need for these off-brand ARPs. It can be kind of tricky, I'm thinking, to get this down in there without dropping it down inside the head. So I might use a magnet possibly to get this in there. So what we're going to do now is torque the head studs to the ARP specifications. We're going to do it in 3 increments, and we're going to wait roughly 10 to 15 minutes in between each torque sequence. We're going to do 30, 60, 80 because we're using engine oil. I think they actually require less torque when you use the ARP Moly Lube, but we're using engine oil, so we're going to do 30, 60, 80 on these, and that should be just fine. So we just torqued them to 30 foot-pounds right now. This is the pattern that you want to do them in. This is the exhaust side, by the way. I just hit it with 60 foot-pounds now. We're gonna wait another 20, and we're gonna hit it with the final 80 foot-pounds. So while we're waiting, a couple other seals you want to replace is the VTEC solenoid seal here. It comes with this little filter screen kit as well. Sometimes it's kind of a good way to just kind of check the, I don't know, how the condition of the engine in a way, because I have seen some engines that were pretty clapped out that this was completely full of debris, that sort of thing. And that also, if it is full, can be a reason why your VTEC is not working as well. There is also another O-ring gasket underneath here as well. I do have that seal, so we're going to replace both of these. These are the part numbers if you want to take reference of those. Honda parts, of course, nothing but the best. So we got the VTEC solenoid bolted back on there. Fresh new O-rings. Looking snazzy. So it's been about 20-25 minutes or so. We're gonna hit this to the final 80 foot-pounds. Quick advice here. Take your engine stand and put it up against something, so that way when you're tightening it down, the engine stand doesn't keep trying to rotate on you. Just a little tip. Makes it a lot easier. So we got them all torqued to 80 foot-pounds. So what we're going to do now is put the valve cover gasket on. This is the Honda part number for the B Series VTEC gasket. It does come with the spark plug O-rings as well. I did notice here there is a difference when it comes to installing this. There's a little thing on here, you can see it. That goes down into this little square because there's not one on this side. So it's made to go, it is side specific. So you are going to be running a thermal intake manifold gasket as well. Just make sure, and I've never had issues with a thermal gasket as long as you do this, but make sure you put Honda Bond around this here because coolant does flow through that. And I always like to put some on this side as well, just to verify that you get everything sealed up and you should have no problems. And we do have a OEM Honda exhaust manifold gasket as well. That is the B series VTEC P72 part number for that. So UPS just showed up. We got something here we've been waiting on. I didn't pull it out of the box yet, but I did cut it open. We'll see what we got. Oh yeah. Got ourselves a race intake manifold and a 68mm throttle body for the bad girl. Oh yeah. We'll get it out of the package here. Whew. That thing is a beast, yo. Holy crap. Super long runners. It's got velocity stack in there that's removable. And a 68mm throttle body. So this same intake manifold from like Skunk 2 is like a $600 to $800 intake manifold, not including the throttle body. 240 bucks on eBay. eBay branded copycat. It's a YC Tech S or a 5. So yeah, we're gonna get that thing fitted on there and see how she fits. Just kind of set this on here with a couple bolts real loose, but man, that thing is wicked looking. Holy crap. Whew. Giant. So the throttle cable gets rerouted up onto the top, and the actuator actually opens from the top side. Whereas on this one, the throttle body kind of loops around and comes in on the side here. So totally different intake manifold, and look how much crap we are deleting. We don't need a lot of this stuff, so only a few things will get transferred over onto this. Man, it's cool looking though. So I've been working on bolting some of the stuff onto the engine itself that was on that intake manifold. So some of the things that I did for any of you guys that are looking at doing one of these intake manifolds, this bolts right on there directly. And what I did was, we're not going to run coolant lines to it, so I just blocked those off. The fuel pressure regulator vacuum hose goes to here. Your main vacuum line goes on there. A couple other things that I did was, so the stock throttle body had a bunch of coolant lines that went to it, so we're not going to run that for the fast idle thermal on here. This line normally went to that, so what I did was, it comes off of here in the back. It routed it around, and that just goes back up into here. I'm going to replace this line with a nicer one, but just so that I had an idea of how the routing would go. So if any other guys are doing this, this is how it's going to go. We're also not going to be having heat, so there's a kit that Honda makes to plug this. So we'll be doing that as well. And then on here, that goes onto that as well. I haven't hooked that up yet. And then the PCV valve, I got to replace this hose as well because it's in really bad shape. But this will go from here, and then more than likely onto this one as well. I will be putting tape on these to seal those pipe tape, but I haven't done that yet. I'm just kind of getting a good mock-up of how everything's going to go. I can't remember what exactly this one's for, but I think that on the GSR is for heat as well, possibly. If it is, we'll be blocking that off also. But yeah, the fuel rail bolts on perfect. It doesn't need any spacers or anything like that. Stock though, it uses studs. You can see on here, there's studs to hold the rail on. On this setup, it uses bolts. So you'll need some 6 by 1.0 by like 25 millimeter bolts to make those worth. Yeah, so this is what I used here. 6 by 1.0 by 25 millimeter. That's like the perfect length to make those work for anybody that wants to use that intake manifold. Like I said, this intake manifold from Skunk 2 is between $600 and $800. This is 250 bucks with a throttle body, or 240. So I mean, that's a pretty big difference in price. I'm sure it's not gonna make the exact horsepower numbers, but God, I mean, I would bet it's within a few, because I was looking at it, the fit and finish is actually pretty good. There's a few things where I noticed there's some casting slag that could be cleaned up. If we were going for a full tilt, all motor build, trying to get the most horsepower as possible out of this, yeah, I'd probably go through it with a Dremel, clean everything up, that sort of thing. But it's bone stock. I mean, we're just going to run it as is. On the throttle body, we got the TPS sensor on there, as well as the map sensor. Those bolted on there, and actually did come with a map sensor here. We're not going to use that one. We're going to use the factory Honda one. And these are the coolant lines that you're supposed to normally use for the fast idle thermal, but we block those off. And then I think this is just another vacuum hose. Probably won't be using it, so we'll just block that off as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Definitely way less involved on this than that hunk of junk right there, with lots of extra sensors and hoses and valves and stuff we don't need. So this I think will work out great. I'm just really a little bit concerned with how long this is, that it's going to contact the firewall. So I did just bust out the tape measure. From here to here, it's 13 inches. From here to here is 13 inches. All right, guys, so it's been about a week now. I've been freaking waiting for parts forever for this thing. Finally got one part that we need to at least get the cams in and get the cams or the valve lash adjusted. So I'll kind of show what we got here. So this O-ring goes underneath one of these cam caps here. Yeah, been waiting a while for this single O-ring. We got our jam nut valve lash tool. Yeah, it's kind of specific for the Japanese vehicles. Finally, this showed up after I already bought a different bottle of it. Shows it was delivered, and then it actually was delivered 5 days later. So yeah, we're gonna get these kind of cleaned and lubed up in case there's any dirt or dust that fell in this in the last 2 weeks now. And then that O-ring goes under here. So we'll get that cleaned up, get the cams dropped in, and then we can put the belt on. Okay guys, something I forgot to mention here, I forgot to film. You want to put the engine in top dead center. There is a single mark on the crank pulley that you want to line up with this mark on the cover. If you don't have your cover, it's going to be a lot harder to do it, so save at least the bottom half of the timing cover. It'll help the guys out too when they tune it. Makes it way easier than them trying to do it off of the cam gears, which you can do also. But yeah, so put it in TDC. So I just kind of set this cam in here and just set the two end blocks on. That's all. Lubed up the intake side now. I'm going to set the intake cam in, and then we'll get all the caps on and get everything lined up and tightened down. Also, this is a great tool to use for setting everything up. You can get it off eBay. It's, I want to say, less than 20 bucks. It's got a bunch of teeth on it, and it holds the cam gears pretty much right where they need to be. So once we get the cams tightened down, we're going to double check everything before we put the belt on. All right, guys, so I got everything torqued. I did struggle a little bit. For some odd reason, this cam cap did not really want to seat, so I actually had to loosen everything back up and redo it because I could see there was a gap down here. So I just went back through and redid everything, and then it's seated properly, and then I went back through and torqued it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, check the timing, double check, make sure it's still at TDC, and then get the cam gears placed where they need to be and slide the belt on and get the tensioner tightened up. Alright guys, so I managed to get the timing marks all lined up. Got the single mark there on the timing cover, and these line up as well, both cam gears facing up. Nice and tight, nice and tight. Kind of the last final step on this is adjusting the valve lash. What you're going to want to do, you're going to want to definitely check your specs, because I think some of the B series engines are all different. So yeah, so we're going to actually set the exhaust side on this to 8,000s, and I believe the intake side is 7, but I do have to verify that. I think it's 6 to 7 and 7 to 8. You can be in that range, but we're going to set the exhaust side for sure on the high side. This thing will get hot. It's going to be, you know, on the track, so it could tighten up a little bit. So we're going to go on the high side and do the exhaust side 8,000s. This is a great tool to get. You can buy it on Amazon. Without it, it can be a real bear. This is the part here. I believe it's like 20 or 25 bucks on Amazon. Pretty snazzy. Get yourself one of these. We're going to go through and do the valve adjustment. So I just went through, I spun the motor over a few different times to verify, but I did set all these to 8,000s. Now I'm going to work on setting the intake side to 7,000s. So we'll get working on that. And if you guys, I didn't want to do a whole video on me adjusting valves, because I mean there's a million videos of that out there. So if you're not sure how to do it, just look it up. As long as you have each cylinder lobes on the back side of the cam lobe when you're setting them, that's where you don't want it to be opening up the valves when you're trying to adjust it. So if you're not sure how to do it, a million videos out there. But for the b18c1, we're setting these to 8,000s on the exhaust and 7,000s on the intake. So the intake side is now done as well. I double checked everything. I rotated it over multiple times. We should be good to go there. Next step, I'm going to put the brand new spark plugs in. Let's show you what we got here. We got some NGKs. That's the temperature we got. I believe that's pretty much factory spark plugs for this engine. So we'll get those in, and then we'll get the valve cover on. I am checking I'm checking the spark plug gap as well. I'm setting it to about 51, 52 thousandths. They were pre-capped at like 20, so we're bumping it up just a little bit here. So we got all these pre-gapped spark plugs, not so much. All gapped to the correct spec here. So we're gonna lightly drop them down in the hole. And we're going to use our, I believe this is a 5/8, yep, 5/8 spark plug socket to tighten those bad boys down. Go through and just kind of snug them up, and then I'll get them tightened down. And you know, the torque spec to this, even though this is a Japanese engine, we always use German torque specs to good and tight. So I'm gonna crank on these a little bit and get them snugged up. Alright guys, I think I'm gonna call that a wrap. All I really gotta do is get the valve cover bolted down, put the distributor on and the new spark plug wires, and the engine will be pretty much buttoned up other than a couple coolant lines, and yeah, we'll be ready to be dropping this bad girl into the shell here soon enough. So I'm thinking the next time you see me, it'll probably be soon here. We got a race coming up this weekend, so you'll see me in the DA Integra here. And for those of you wondering what DA is and why I put that in my videos, I get asked it all the time. DA is the body style of this Integra. So if you see DA in my videos, it's because that's the body style of this Integra. It's not DA Integra, it's DA Integra. So just wanted to clear that up. If you guys could, please smash that like button, helps get my videos out there. Also, please subscribe if you could, and we'll see you guys at the racetrack. Woo!